Well, that was awesome. So you'll be able to pick that back up if you didn't hear all of that interview with Robert Whitaker. You'll be able to pick it up in the archives. And I'll welcome you to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. Today is Monday, August the 30th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And I'll welcome, press 1 to talk to us, and that'll put you in queue. I'm going to welcome Michael, and then I'm also going to welcome Michelle.
Sweet. Welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here and ready to rock and roll. Michelle, how are you, young lady?
I'm fine.
Oh, good. What's on your mind today?
Well, I re-listened to the show, and, you know, being a couple days away from when we originally talked and kind of putting myself back into my own shoes and then hearing how I answered and really putting effort to try to identify what it is that I was incomplete with in terms of my commitment to my family. I guess I am not feeling anything that feels strong or that I have like a judgment on or like a strong emotion towards. You know, I
awesome.
think like, okay, like mom guilt. I was trying to think about things like with my kids that I, judged in the past and, try to sort of ferret out something there. With my stepkids, I know that there were things that, that they reacted poorly to. But when I think about, like, how I went into these relationships, I feel like I was doing the best I could. I feel like I was getting a lot of help along the way. So I was going through different possibilities. My family of origin with my mom, I'm like, well, could I have found forgiveness work faster and maybe saved a couple years in terms of my resistance to being open to that relationship? And I'm like, well, I found forgiveness when I found forgiveness. So
probably it's the perfect
I'm
time.
hoping that you've given me some ideas, but I'm not feeling the hot spot that I'm supposed to.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're not. You're getting to experience the fruit of your work. One of the things that struck me in our conversation and why I suggested maybe we continue it today is that the word we use to describe what we do when we write something down is to spell something and spelling. And, of course, we look at that. There are two different definitions, at least for that word. One is it's the way that we put letters together to make a word. But the other one is to put one into a state of hypnosis, into a spell. And I noticed that when you first introduced the topic of your divorce and mentioned your former's name, that you used the word unnecessary in describing his leaving the relationship. And I think that word was used once or twice more in the conversation. And what really struck me at that moment and why I wanted to, it wasn't topical to go into that in the time we had on the show on Friday, but it seemed like a good opportunity to present an idea to the whole audience about how we use words to form the perceptual constructs that we have. And, a state of hypnosis is one where the mind is controlled and its perceptual constructs are structured by the words in hypnosis, usually the words that another uses. We can take somebody who is having a particular experience, and if they go into what we call a somnambulistic state of hypnosis, another person can feed them words, and the mind will totally change its perceptual construct about anything. You know, you've heard me before use the example of somebody standing on a stage, and the stage hypnotist says, when they're in that somnambulistic state, now you're standing on the deck of a ship. Now this person looks down, and they see a stage. Their brain produces an image that's relatively accurate about the stage, and they know they're standing on a stage. But when the hypnotist's words take over the perceptual mind, all of a sudden the brain produces a perceptual construct, a picture of them standing on a ship. And so that word was the word in our whole conversation that really stood out to me most powerfully, that when you think in terms of that whole experience from your former's point of view, being categorizing it as unnecessary, then your mind is going to be limited by that word, and you'll keep perceiving everything related to it as unnecessary. And my offering would be that you might want to substitute the word necessary and see what else your mind shows you. You might find that there's a big difference in taking that limit off of perception's abilities to show you what's really going on.
So wait, so how would I approach that? Like, saying, like, like considering the idea that this divorce was necessary?
Well, I'm just suggesting that it will give you the possibility of your mind showing you things that when you're committed to, it's unnecessary, that your mind simply won't show you. And
no, I love
once
that.
we
I like that, Mike.
hypnotize, once we set the mind up to see things a certain way, then the mind just makes up whatever it needs to, to hallucinate a reality so that I can keep believing what I've told my mind to show me. And when I can see more evidence that would be blocked by such a concept, maybe I'll see where, I played into it, made it necessary, and it gives me the opportunity to perhaps act differently, to correct things, to forgive things that might change the dynamic of whatever it is. And, of course, this is just an example. It can go in any arena of life. To use language that opens my mind to showing me as much evidence as possible rather than blocking any evidence. But when I say, well, that's unnecessary, my mind has to go, okay, then I'll only show you evidence that shows that it's unnecessary. And it might be useful to shift into, well, maybe in my former's mind, this was necessary, and start to look at what evidence can I see, or what have I blocked in myself that might be useful to look at and be able to change, have the power to change. We can't change what we can't see.
So the first thing that came to my mind playing around with it, so I can make up a story on this one, and the story I made up was this was necessary because he did what I could never do.
Which is?
Be the one to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Well, and we tie it into your later conversation. Go ahead.
I was just thinking that maybe, if on some soul level, that I was accepting the relationship for what it was and knowing that it was unfulfilling because of, fill in the blank, his Crohn's disease, his, mental health issues, or whatever, but that I would never be the one to not accept my husband. I'm not going to be the one to end this relationship because I committed.
Mm.
Like the righteousness of having my integrity is maybe more important than being happy. I'm going to leave you and go find someone better, because that doesn't feel right either.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Well, later in the latter part of the conversation, when I asked you if you looked at him truly, and I don't remember exactly what your words were, but there was something to the effect of, well, I wouldn't have anything to do with him.
Yeah, I was being crass.
Yeah, okay.
And then words fly up, right?
Yeah, and my thoughts remain below. So I want to look at everything because if I don't look at that factor, if there's a factor in there that I block, then I'm going to get to live the title of my book. Why is this happening to me again? Because that factor is going to come into the next interaction, the next relationship. If I clear it out of me, then I'm going to be able to really, truly create something totally and completely different if I choose to create another relationship.
No, I remember one radio show with you on this topic, and it was 4.5 years ago, and I had this joy for about maybe 10 days that this is exactly what I wanted, and I was really happy about it, and this was going to be a transformative time in my life, and then I lost it. So I know
my offering would be you didn't lose it.
Time.
Yeah, my offering would be you
buried.
didn't lose it. What my offering would be is you didn't lose it. You hit a new clarity and goal for your mind, and everything that would block that had to come to the surface for healing. It's kind of like a mind shifter. High level of connected joy energy was like a mind shifter, and now your task in order to achieve it is to clean up everything in your mind that goes against it. So all the grief, all the rage, all the sadness, all the pain, all the drama, all the trauma is going to have to be cleared out, or I will seem to lose it, but really it's buried by what that mind shifter surfaces. So I would support you creating a mind shifter out of what you just said there, and doing that mind shifter. I have such delight and joy, and now choose to create my life as I really choose. And then, and this would be a really important one, I'd take 4 hours. I'd block out the phones. I'd shut off my cell phone, everything, and I'd sit for 4 hours and I'd write that mind shifter and see, as I do a brain dump, what's under it that buried that joy. There's a paleontologist, Catholic priest named Teilhard de Chardin, and he has an awesome definition. I actually add one word to it, but he has an awesome definition of joy. He says, joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. Now, I adjust that just a little bit, because if that were true, joy would always be present, because the Creator is always present. The love is always present. But joy is the infallible sign of the awareness of the presence of God. And so if joy came to me, that means that love was fully present in my structure. And now everything less than that, I need to process through in order to really own that and live with that for eternity. Breathing?
Yeah.
Because you deserve, your natural state is to live in joy 24/7 for the rest of eternity. That's your natural state. Anything less than that is an aberration of the mind. And, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. In order to really be in that state, you got to be out of your mind. But when you took that in for that 10 days and were with it, your mind, again, it acted like a mind shifter. Your mind just brought up everything. And, what it brought up would be things from your life, from your relationships, from your genetics, from your family system, from your cultural system, that need to be healed. Every frequency, every vibration. That the empowerment of being in that state of joy would bring up for you. And there's your next layer of forgiveness work.
While we've been talking so far today, one thing I just thought of, which is like, related to, let's say, the work that I've done on Mark, and, you know, how many times I canceled the goal to be married to Mark, and
Right.
all the things related, that I didn't necessarily get the results I wanted, so to speak, with my husband, and that was always never promised, you know, assured me that was not approaching things. But that after all that work, I got a huge result with my mom, because I didn't really do much work on her during that whole time. So you know how you say, like,
right.
do your work on your parents and then marriage will work out. I did work on my marriage, and then my mom worked out.
Yeah, it all fits together. You know, the work I need to do is the work I need to do. I can perceive that it comes from and has to do with someone or something, but the truth is, everywhere that interfering energy comes in will improve as I do the piece of work, whether it's, you know, on the person I look at in the mirror that, let's say, there's rage at, or the spouse that there's rage at, or the parent that there's rage at, or the government there's rage at, or whoever it is. If I'll do that piece of work, rage is going to start to disappear from my life and relationships. And I'm going to get to live as a human being, as the presence of love. Now, that doesn't mean everything that I want to have happen is going to happen, but I'm going to tend to create openings for amazing, wondrous, and wonderful things to occur. I'm going to get to look inside of my structure at places where energetic patterns have been held perhaps for literally 100 generations that I need to clean out. And every perceptual construct related to that issue is going to change. Whoever or whatever my mind tells me it's about. You know, people say I'm angry at Joe or Bill or whatever. Nobody's ever been angry at anybody, ever in their lives. Nobody has ever been angry with anybody. They're just people who are angry. Now, they can put their anger into their picture of Joe or Bill or Harry or Mary or, you know, the door that didn't close properly and they kick it and break their foot. You know, I was angry at the door. Get out of here. You weren't angry at the door. You just had anger and, you know, you put it into your brain's image of the door and you kick the stupid door, you know. and as we realize that, you know, we've never been sad about anything. We've never been hateful about anything. We've never been fearful about anything. But if there's hate and there's fear and there's sadness in us, I can put it into anything. You know, I can, my rage and put it into the fact that I dropped my pen and my favorite pen and the tip broke. I can go into a fit of rage about that. I'm really angry because, has anybody ever been angry because they've broken a pen? No. But their brains told them they've been angry about that. There's just anger. There's just sadness. There's fear. And these things get placed in our perceptual construct, projected into our perceptual constructs. And as long as we think it's about that, it's like that state of hypnosis. When I tell my mind it's about that, here's the instruction I give to my mind. Evidential mind, you are only allowed to show me that this rage is about that. Rather than, when I realize the truth of it, my instruction to my perceptual mind is, mind, damn, I have rage, I have such rage, and I realize I need to, and I want to look at it, and I want to clean it up. And now I'm going to go to a different part of my mind and have access to the ability to forgive it, to remove it, rather than get lost in it.
One of the things when I re-listened to the broadcast is I redid the exercise, and I paid attention to my hands because you had asked about any sensations, and I did feel like there was a frequency around me when I was really concentrating, and I definitely felt it. But then I was thinking, okay, are you just feeling that because you are thinking you should feel it? And so then I started to overthink it. But I felt like you know what, that's something that I could, just do on a regular basis and send them blessings and be on your way.
There's a great show that Dr. Tim did when he interviewed Pierre Pradovan, The Gentle Art of Blessings. In the context of that statement, you might want to go back and find that in the archives. And it was a powerful show. Pierre Pradovan. He's got a book out there called The Gentle Art of Blessing. And Tim interviewed him live. I think he was in France or somewhere at the time he interviewed him. But, it's to take charge of the evidential mind and consciously operate the evidential mind rather than let it operate you changes everything. The Harvard research that we've talked about that says that, in the time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, the max amount of data that goes into our conscious perceptual constructs is 9 bits, a little tiny bit. And most people are run by the law of resonance. This or that or the next thing or the next person resonates this, and that's what fills the 9-bit mind. And I go, I have that about that, and I'm being run by my mind rather than me running my mind. Go back to Yeshua, and he says, to be the master bound by the servants in your own temple, your own household, is a tragedy. And most people, our culture teaches us to be run by our minds because that makes us very good slaves and servants to the king.
I had another thought when you were talking about the mind shifter, and I don't know, you said a lot of things there. I don't know that you actually got to formulating a full one. But I was thinking that maybe on this topic about, unnecessarily breaking your commitment to your family and where that might have some more roots was this time I was doing a mind shifter with Rex, and he had a workshop in Lansing. It was like a breath session, and there was probably 20 plus people there. And my mind shifter was along the lines of, my guilt heals my relationship with my mom or something. I'm like, what? I don't have any guilt. Never had, I'm a victim here, so not sure how the perpetrator is the one who has the guilt. So I worked on it for a half an hour, and I'm so frustrated with the thing that I just stopped early, and we ended up breathing early. So it was just like, okay, this is dumb. And I thought, well, you win some, you lose one, I guess. Maybe I didn't pick. And then it was a week later, and I was in Pompano in Florida at Sally's house. This is in 2013. And Dr. Tim was doing the radio show, and he was hosting. I don't know where you were, but, they were talking about it, about this idea of guilt, or somehow it got brought up. And all of a sudden, boom, it hit me, and I started crying uncontrollably. I had to hide in the walk-in closet because I was so loud, sobbing, because this feeling of guilt and realizing that if I had been a better daughter, then I wouldn't have been abused. And if I had been a better person and more lovable, then I would have been cared for and considered and honored and all those things. And it there was so much guilt, I just couldn't believe it. And it was very helpful because I was in the company of 20 other women that week, whatever it was. And
right.
So I'm thinking,
I was in Jeannie's Women Healing Women workshop.
Her commencement.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be there. And that's where I actually met Nancy Lynn. It was great. We spent some time this weekend doing healing work and talking about things. So
cool.
I'm going to ask Holy Spirit, I suppose, that maybe that would be the best way to, let's see. Okay. I'm open to exploring what needs to be healed related to my family commitment.
Well, I certainly hold a space for that. I mean, that's such a big issue on the planet. Globally. I mean, globally. You go back and you look at, the global conflicts. You look at, the Arabs and the Jews are brothers, and look at the family conflict, and that's just one example. And at what point do we really take on and stand in the willingness to let whatever patterns are in us surface for healing? It's monumental.
Mm. Yeah.
You sound like you're moving into a very pensive space.
Yeah, I because it's more observing different things and how energies move. What I was thinking about was that sort of out of the blue, my niece from my first marriage, who really isn't even related to me anymore, and I didn't see her during her growing up years. She's 21 now, and she's struggling, and she's reaching out to me, and then she has this image of me as her Aunt Michelle that she can come and ask advice to and lean on. And I was like, how does she even know me? Like, it's just interesting, her perspective. And I'm like, oh, course, sure, I'll come on over and we'll spend some time. And spent the day with her, dinner and swimming and all kinds of stuff, and just talking to her and really just holding a space as she kind of figures things out. Pulled some tarot cards for her. But then her uncle, my brother-in-law, texted me, and he texted me for the first time in 5 years,
right,
about some random thing. And I was like, you know what I mean? To me, that was so interesting, because I felt the sense that my niece's mom, who died of alcoholism, and my former husband, who died of bipolar and related, had alcoholism. So it's like their two souls I felt like they were present during our day with me and my niece. And then for the other brother to call, it was just such I'm thinking about the whole thing, how every healing situation is kind of like that. You don't know necessarily what's going on between the scenes, behind the scenes, how things are being pulled together, what makes it different for who and when and why. And just so that I kind of got lost in that when we were just talking about the whole healing process, because everybody's healing. All the family relationships are healing. The Baumgarten family is healing.
Yeah. And notice that everybody's perceptual constructs are so different. What I heard you say was, to you, there was really never any relationship with her. Her perceptual construct was there was full-blown relationship with you and a trusting relationship with you. What have you blocked that you weren't aware of that, and what is she open to that she is and is willing to come to you? I mean, that's monumental.
I was like, who, me? What do you mean? People have to pay me to come to me. Brianna, what do you want? You just want to come to me?
And you know what that's called? It's called family commitment.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I felt that.
I mean, how awesome is that young lady, however it occurred for her, maybe because it was a full-blown relationship that you weren't aware of, or maybe it's one that she fantasized, but she has that reality, that construct in her mind. I mean, how can our realities be so different?
I think, she knows that I was really close with her mom, And yesterday she was asking me, she's like, well, what stories do you have about my mom? And so like I was just going, you know what I mean, story after story. And I know she was just like filled, like getting her out of my house. I'm like on the porch and lingering. You're like, bye. You know, it's like she's like, what? And she's like, well, maybe I can see you before you go to Mexico. Like, okay, well, you can come and live with me if you want, but then we gotta go. So I don't know. We'll see what unfolds. But I do like that idea because I do feel like he had reached out to her, the other uncle, and I realized that even though I was the in-law, that, you know, I embraced it more fully than the other relative that she had reached out, and that I felt really good about that. And until you labeled it, I didn't even realize why that was so important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a gift. What a gift for her to give you, to remind you, and what a gift for you to be able to stand there for her, because that's what family does, unless we're blocked, and then family doesn't want to do that.
Wow, I didn't think I was going to cry out of this reason.
Well, I just join you in breathing, and it sounds like there's a little bit of grief moving. Like, what did you miss out with her?
Weird grief and joy. No, it's grief and joy.
Yeah.
Like, wow, it really was such a blessing. And she kept finding pennies around my house, and pennies is her thing with my mom. You know, that's pretty common. But I'm a kind of housekeeper. Like, if there's change, I pick it up and I have a special little drawer. So even if it's pennies, they're not lying around. I'm like, damn, Brianna, like, you just bring that juju to the house. So it was a good weekend, but it's nice to talk to you about it.
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean, if we can't turn to family, who can we turn to? You know, and most of the world doesn't have anybody to turn to. You know, most people are out there both alone and lonely.
Well,
with nobody they can trust.
Well, the idea that you connect with the people who want to connect with you. I mean, one thing that when I was talking to my niece yesterday and realizing that she's the same age as my stepdaughter, and that these two little babies born in the same year, and how the one who I poured myself into rejects me and doesn't want anything to do with me, and the one that cared about from afar is the one who really needs like what I have to offer, and that it really doesn't matter that my heart is filled because I can like share wisdom with somebody who's struggling, because when you're in 20, that's what you do. So it
sounds like time to take her to lunch before you go to Mexico.
Oh yeah, I guess so. I you know what I told her, because Alyssa only has a one-way ticket. She doesn't buy a round trip, and so I have no idea when she's coming home from Europe. So I took Bria Alyssa's bedroom, and I said, go on the bed. I'm going to take a picture, and I'm sending it to Alyssa. And I say, I have a new daughter. And so I invite her. I said, yeah, you can come. If Liz doesn't come home, you can stay here and take care of the animals and just sleep in her room, and you can be my daughter. And at some level, I think she liked that. She this was her mom. Died too early.
Yeah. That's powerful.
So that was unexpected. Opening for probably a new relationship that probably go as far as I want to take it.
Well, and thinking in terms of healing the family dynamics, this is where it happens. As you change your genetics, and at 20, she probably doesn't have a clue that's even possible, and you open that space for her. Literally everybody in the family gets to shift with the work that you do with her. And a lot of times, family's not even interested. But that's where the effort and the work is redoubled. You know, it's like kind of like it comes back to you, would be my take, in ways that it doesn't come back from people that you're not genetically connected to.
I'm not sure if I know exactly what you're saying. Can you say that a different way?
Yeah. If I'm the early adopter in this work and I do a ton of work, I'm going to impact everybody in my family system. But my impact is probably going to be, something like 2%. So, I'll see changes happening around the family system. But if there's somebody else in the same genetic line that goes, oh, I'm ready for this, the work I do with them, instead of seeing what might be a 2% change if I'm the only one doing it, might be a 60% change in the whole family system, and reinforces everything in me that changes in them, and vice versa. Because we are energetic beings. And it's like, there's the mathematical progression effect when you start adding family members doing their work. Energetically.
Right. Well, I know that when I look back, my brother, who is in good graces with my mom, definitely he said something kind of to me like, none of this would have happened without me. And if I didn't come back from Billings, then I wasn't living here. And I'm like, okay, fair enough, I agree. And it's true. He was also very desirous of the family being repaired, and I think it bothered him a lot that my mom was so cruel to me, and that my brothers and sisters, jumped on this Mussolini pile, and then they were all kind of against me. And he used to call himself Switzerland. And he's like, hey, Michelle didn't kill Dad. Like, Michelle's fine. Y'all need to get over yourself. And he's held that stand for 16 years. And so maybe not the formal healing work that I've done, but in his own way really held a space for the family.
That's pretty awesome. He'd probably appreciate a written acknowledgement of how you're seeing that.
Okay.
Really, seriously.
Oh, I know.
One of the deepest needs that people have is just to be seen and accepted, and clearly he's put a lot of effort into that. And what a gift to offer it back to him and acknowledge it.
No, that's really a great idea. That's really a good idea.
I mean, when you talk about for 16 years he's held that, he's said it to different people, that's huge. When he could have just got along with, everybody else's, distorted perception.
No, he calls himself a triple agent because, he's good with everybody, even though that they might be enemies on the side, right? And one time I caught him, two-timing me because he'll, it's manipulative, but it's kind of playful too. I understand how it is. He goes, you don't understand the work of a triple agent, Michelle. He's in his own world, he's orchestrating and all the players to get, he'll probably talk to my mom, relax a little, let Michelle's okay, or to me, quit being so, righteous or whatever. So I do see where you're the concept that if more people in a family system are doing work, that they can synergize and get there quicker.
And when you see see that in him, when people are seen and acknowledged, it has a profound impact. Just profound.
No, I agree. When
because
I was in Mexico,
in our culture. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about Carrie Ellis. When I was in Mexico,
Right.
she did that for me every day. She would remind me, how capable or how accomplished or how, lovable, and just, really, it is magical when you're having other people being witness to that and verbally expressing it. That's why I agree. I'm take your idea, we'll work on that.
Cool. Sweet. I could just see a really nice card, acknowledgement, and putting it in writing to him. And I mean, it's like I can almost feel his heart cockles warming in response to that.
No, yeah, because sometimes I think he feels that he got screwed over in life because he never got married and he never really had, a professional acclaim. And so, he believes his purpose was being there for my sister Melanie, who has Down syndrome, and helping out the family in that way. But I agree that his opportunities for that level of acknowledgement just weren't expanded in his life. So did Angie call back, or did Angie come back on Monday here?
I don't know. Let's check with Jeannie. Angie, if you're out there and you have something to share with us, how about putting your hand out?
Is it Angie, or I thought Sunny was going to call in?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's right.
Angie called in Friday.
There is a hand up. So let's see. Area code 727. You're on the air.
Oh, that's Florida.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey there, 727. We loud and clear.
Good. It's Patrick.
Hey, Patrick.
A parallel, in a conversation we were having, and a desire that I have, or goal that I could like to get more answers. But it's also a parallel in the work that you do. When you used to travel and people were in pain in their life and relationships with life and people, and you would give them short things each night, and they would get a breakthrough and they would feel a relief of their pain, then they would be motivated to get into your work more. And I found that I was able to avoid major things, take tests that were really great 23, 24 years ago, but still managed to avoid the pain of facing my pain myself. So I'm thinking of this. I thought of it in your work, how to not have people drop out or delay so long. And then I thought of it in relationship to what we call waking up in the matrix, maybe. So for me, in all things, there's polarities, and in all things, there's good on both ends of the polarity. And the polarity that I'm thinking of is all the questions on solutions for COVID. So with my children, and I find this also parallel to be true in every way for everyone, they're in what I would call, a sphere, a bubble, their reality. They've chosen what they feel that is right, which I think we all do. All of our egos have decided what we think and what we think about, what we believe, because we think we're pretty good and we're right. So when anybody has a discussion, everybody generally wants to just prove that they're right and not listen or be open to the opposite. Now, Krishnamurti, who was touted to be originally the the Christ of the New Age, but turned it down due to saying what I heard or what I read was he overshot the mark, but his main teaching was that we needed to listen to each other. We needed to, Christian to Muslim, blah, blah, blah. And intake the other person's viewpoint, but I don't find that to be true hardly ever at all, hardly ever in anyone. So I'm looking at the reasons why. I think it has to do with, my studies like on the COVID Go and on things like, Republican and Democratic, socialism and capitalism. I go back and forth to the assets of both. Look at that the flux and flow creates a better world, but if you just had one, if you're over capitalistic, the heck with everybody. If you're over socialistic, no motivation to work. That I've found over the years. So I try to find the best in both, and right now my major goal interest is in seeing if I can influence my children to look at both sides of any question, especially I'm looking at early treatment and COVID being, from my viewpoint, extremely important and many viewpoints, but they and their mother have no idea about that. They're just sticking with, the vaccination takes care of me. And I love to be able to influence, but it's more like a competition. So I'm looking at how do I or they open. The only thing I can think of so far is don't state your statements, what you think's right. Only ask questions of the other. Just listen and ask questions. And some of those questions can be leading to thought. And then again, I'm not only just interested in how to assist other people to look at other viewpoints and arrive at their own whatever more openly, than solidified in their stance, including me, and how to assist people, because I've looked at a lot of friends who have taken your courses and dropped out and would rather avoid the pain of facing their pain or some reason why they don't continue. So that's all my thoughts. Open to you now.
Well, I hear you loud and clear, and it's kind of sad that people get a positive COVID test and then they're sent home and said, well, wait and see what happens. If you end up in the hospital, well, then we'll treat you, as opposed to, gee, you can be empowered and you have an immune system and you can strengthen your natural immunity, and that's powerful. And you can, if you get a positive COVID test, there are things you can go home and do today rather than wait and see if it gets worse and you end up in a hospital. Because, by the time people get to the hospital, it's getting pretty late in the game. So definitely I think people need to be looking at early treatment protocols, and before anything shows up in the way of COVID, take care of your immunity. You have an immune system, and the immune system doesn't come from a vaccine. It's something we have, and we definitely need to understand how it works and be our own primary healthcare providers. That kind of be my take.
We agree, but now how do you influence people? My opinion is not, my projection so far would be that, say, my 3 children, I've allowed them to develop however they wanted to develop in life and never said anything, because I just think they should take their own path. And now they just feel that the vax is it, and they send me, from my perspective, not what they're asking me for, which I've given them statistical information and data from around the world, but they have none. All I got when I asked that was, Dad, I'm hanging up now. So it's like, it seems to me that even me taking a stance that's anything different from where they're at, that alone made them feel wrong, and so they just put out, that I'm wrong. Just simple, non-thoughtful, non-critical thinking, emotionally biased action, instead of critical thinking or true investigation of anything. So then I think, well, how do I just let them go, or do I just let everybody go and don't try to assist anyone because they've taken their stance? And same with your work. There are certain people that I've loved to encourage to continue or to go into, but I found that one of our good friends has backed up and decided that their problem has strictly been tremendous physical injury, and when they were talking with you, a lot of energy started coming up, and they got very depressed in their voice tones, and they were on the edge of a catharsis, from my opinion, projection, either one. And then they put it away, kind of just backed up and became clear-voiced and but very physically ill. In my opinion, they have tremendous injury, but they're not wanting to face the emotion as it's more painful for them than physical. I also believe some people put, or me included, it's less painful to have it on a physical level, killing your body with it, and to feel it emotionally when you don't think you have a resolvement for it. So those are the, we both agree, people should have early treatment, but how can we either assist people to look at the possibilities, instead of running away from them in your work, and how can we assist people to look at the possibilities of additional treatment in the first week? That's my goal right now with my kids. How can I present to them that there are many possibilities that they could add to their repertoire, and it's important to do it in the first week if they get any symptoms. Besides vitamins, minerals.
One of the things you said earlier is, well, I just decided to let my children take their own path. No child takes their own path. If a parent doesn't raise a child up in a particular way, then somebody or something in the culture is going to. So I'm not a believer in, just let them take their own path, because the world has become expert at brainwashing them to go the path that serves the world and commercial interests. So I think we each need to be willing to be that influence in our children's lives. And then, there's an interesting passage in the scriptures where Yeshua was with a large group of disciples, and they basically ask, well, what do we have to do? And he tells them, there's work to be done. And literally half of his audience, half of his disciples get up and leave and never come back. And their words to him were, too hard a saying. Like, you want me to look inside of me and change and do things? Too hard a saying. And they left. And, that's part of the game, is especially when there's a lot of pain for people. I mean, I've seen people leave, and I've seen it take 10 years to come back and go, what was that you said? Tell me again. And to step into the willingness to do one's own work. I know that for Jeannie and I, we did the codependence intensive back several months ago, and then we did it again. And that's opened a space for our willingness, at the level where we're doing this work, to do a whole new level of work together. So stepping into willingness is a process, and I don't know that there's any pat formula to it, except listening to guidance and being with your intuition to really listen to what each individual needs to hear. I don't think there's a formula to it.
Right. So first, I wish there was. Second, looking at the statement about guidance on my own children, I highly agree with you that I need to get back to it. And they had it when they were young, and because of certain guidance, or because I'm really fortunate, coincidentally, supposedly, they are phenomenally loving and have phenomenal households with tremendous love that I don't see hardly anywhere to that high degree that they have naturally. At the same time, I let go kind of on the concept of they're young men, they want to expand. Once they're 21, 25, somewhere in there, and all three of them two of them made some big mistakes in their early 20s, which I helped them get through, and then they changed their direction and just like an oak tree, grew giant and wondrous, have a great life and all this. But two chose, and I think that was the influence of my good friend Sally, and just the world and just the crazy concepts that they didn't understand that the church has put forth, or what they experienced with being taken to church by their mother early on. They just, two of them decided to be atheists, maybe all three, I don't know. And Daniel and I had a lot of discussions on quantum field, the idea that...
Down to the last minute, Patrick.
Okay. So let's see. Anyway, I will go, I'm going back to influencing them now. But there's no...
Well, I'll hold the space that the right outcome is there for everybody.
Say again? See the bright outcome?
I say I hold the space for the right outcome, safety, and that continuing strengthening of the presence of love in their family systems, in their lives.
Oh, they have that, that's for sure. I think...
Sweet.
I will see the same wondrous outcome for their opening. Although
Well, we'll hold the space, my friend. And the show's going to cut us off in a few seconds, so thank you for your input. We hold the space, and everybody have the best year yet of your eternal lives. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings.